Lesson 9-6, using statistics to predict. In this lesson, you learn to use a sample to predict the actions of a larger group. And why is it important? Because you can use a sample to predict how students in your school feel about a particular topic. Okay, so let's take a look at this real world application on consumerism. How is it important? How important is the brand name when you choose a product? The International Mass Retail Association surveyed consumers 8 to 17 years old on the subject. The results of the survey are shown at the graph at the right. So does brand matter? Consumers 8 to 17 who say the brand is important when buying. For sneakers, 60% brand is important. CD players, 58%. Video games, 54%. Toys and games, 40%. Sports equipment, 39%. And jeans, 37%. Okay? So, uh, you can use the preferences or behavior of a group to make predictions about a larger or a smaller group that is similar. For example, the survey on the brand buying was taken using only a portion of the consumers between 8 to 17 years old. What it's saying is that they did not ask all the 8 to 17 year old in the country. They just asked a portion or small group of 8 to 17 year olds. Okay? But the results were used to make the statements about all consumers in that age group. So let's take a look at how we use this example to be able to predict. Okay? So refer to the application. How many of the 423 ninth grade students at Kilbourne High School would expect to say that they consider brand name when buying jeans? So in this chart right here, in this graph, we have jeans. 37% of those surveyed prefer to brand name when buying jeans. So to answer this question, how many of the 423 ninth grade students would expect to say that they consider brand name when buying jeans? So let's take a look at the Explore. The graph shows 37% of the consumers surveyed considered brand name when they purchase jeans. We need to know how many of the freshman class students consider brand name when buying jeans. Okay. Uh, Using this chapter and gauging from what we learned about ratio and proportion, we will definitely solve a proportion using the percent proportion. So estimate 37% as a little bit over 1/3. The solution should be a little bit over 423 divided by 3, or around 140. So our answer should be close to 140. So let's solve this using the percent proportion. So the percent considering brand name is what we want to find out. It's over 100 because percent is always compared to 100, equal to the number of Kilbourne freshmen who consider brand name, okay, over the number of Kilbourne freshmen. So this is our proportion. So we know that percent considering brand name is 37%. So that's 37 over 100. We don't know the number of Kilbourne freshmen who consider brand name, so that's X. And the total number of Kilbourne freshmen is 423. So we just formed the proportion, and using cross products, we have 37 times 423 equals 100 times X. Okay? And if in order to solve for X, we need to divide both sides by 100, and that's the reason why 37 times 423 divided by 100. And that equals 156.151 using a calculator. So expect 157 students to consider a brand name when buying jeans. And if you look at our solution, okay, the solution of 157 is close to our estimate of around 140, so it is reasonable. Okay, let's take a look at example number 2 and see how we can predict. The television program that began 1995 television season as the #1 show in the media ratings attracted 41% of the media viewers in the first week. if about 91 million viewers watched television that night, how many were watching the number one show? Again, we use a proportion, but before using a proportion for this, the secret word for this particular lesson is Packers. Secret word is Packers. Okay, so we use a proportion, and in using the proportion, this is the proportion that we will be using. X over 91 equals 41 over 100. Again, 41 over 100, okay, is easy enough because that's 41%. Okay, the 91, okay, if about 91 million viewers watch television that night, okay, so that's the total, that's our base, okay, and we want to find out our percentage, okay, how many were watching the number one show. So it's X over 91 equals 41 over 100, and using cross products, we have 100 times X equals 91 times over 91 times 41, okay, and for us to be able to solve for X, we divide both sides by 100, okay, and then we get 37.31 using a calculator. So about 37.31 million viewers watched the number one show that particular night. Okay? So another thing to remember when taking surveys and using the results to predict actions of a larger population, be sure that your sample is random and is large enough to represent the population. Okay? So make sure when you're doing a survey, the sample should be a random sample and it should be large enough to represent the population. Okay, so if you're just taking, even though the sample is random, if you are just using 5 or 6 people, okay, to generalize a particular question, then that is not a good survey. Okay. If the sample is too small, it is likely that the items or people that it includes are not typical of the population. For example, suppose you were told that 4 out of 5 athletes chose a particular type of shoe for basketball. The claim would not be meaningful if only 5 athletes were surveyed. So you should, if you're talking about a large population, a good sizable survey population would probably be around 100 athletes. Okay? And that's our lesson. Thank you for watching.